Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I've got great pleasure in introducing you today to Emma Nixon. Emma is a graduate of the Flower and Vibrational Essence Diploma that I have the privilege of facilitating. Our diploma is so much more than a piece of paper. In fact, I always describe it as a transformational journey, and we're always looking, or not looking, our aim is to offer a supportive space during this diploma for a personal journey that also just happens to be a professional qualification. So thank you, Emma, for joining us today. Thank you for being
hello
here.
to everybody that's joining us live.
When did you graduate, Emma?
2019.
Okay.
The date is etched.
Okay, so 2-3 years ago, depending on what date that was. Yeah, so Emma is actually now a part of our support team for the diploma as well, which is super cool. So Emma, this is really about your journey today. So would you like to tell everybody about you, what you do, about your beautiful work? What would you like to share about you?
Well, I live in Dorset on the south coast, and we've got a beautiful sunny day today. So I've always had to live near the water. When I lived in London, that needed to be near the River Thames. So when I moved to Dorset, it needed to be by the sea. And so I'm very blessed to live in a very beautiful Enid Blyton kind of a world. I have 5 children, all girls, ranging in age from 6 to 19. So they have kept me on my toes for a long time. And before I moved down to Dorset, I had a career as an academic. I was a historian. I worked at the National Archives, so a very head-based job. I was a project manager, so juggling a lot of things, a lot of people, and very different to the work I do now, because now I get to play with essences every day and support people in whatever needs they come to me with. And it's a great blessing, and I'm very honoured. And I also get to work with the Nature Kingdom and co-create an essence range, which I haven't launched yet. It's still in its baby years, but Lucia Essences is the range, which means light. And we imprint light on water with essence making. So it's also the second name of my youngest daughter. So
Oh, wow.
There's a big theme about light in my world.
And that is very overarching as to what everything you do, Emma, and also very much about essence work as well. So we have some people joining us live, so thank you for joining us. Please give Emma some love if you're watching this and you're able to give some comments. So when you came onto the diploma, when you were first called by nature, because that's usually what happens, it certainly was what happened to me, when we're first called to take a journey with nature, there's usually, well, always, I would say, something that needs shifting within us, whether we need it or not. In my case, there was something very obvious that was needed shifting. So what, for you, what called you into taking a deep dive with nature?
Well, I think since I was a little girl, I think I was born to work with nature, but that didn't work out quite the way I thought it did. In fact, as a teenager, I worked with crystals. I thought I was going to be an aromatherapist, but at the same time, I was in a family that really, I was, clever. So my family pushed me down the academic pathway, and I loved learning. I loved reading. I was a bookworm, and also a daydreamer, so books allowed me to escape as well. So if I was indoors and not able to escape in nature and go and talk to the fairies and those sort of things, books drew me in. So books called me, and in hindsight I know that I was meant to have an academic pathway, but all along the way, before I entered university, I tried to be a herbalist with Culpeper, and it didn't work out. So looking back, these things were not the right path for me. And I needed to do history to have a perspective on life and the world and the way humanity has developed, in order to be able to help humanity, I think, and have that understanding. And I reached a crossroads. I'd moved to Dorset. It wasn't viable for me to do my career and fit it in with family life. It would have meant commuting and staying away from my family, which that wasn't the reason I'd had children. So I wasn't going to be doing that. And I had to have a really big rethink. And I thought, and I was also heading for 50. I think I was 48 when I came up to joining the diploma. And it was just like, well, if I'm going to do it, this is the time. I'm very fortunate that I come from a family where we're quite young in spirit. So it's never too late to do anything. So I looked around. I'd taken essences since my early 20s. They'd been part of my life and I used them with my family. And it was very much, do I train to be a homeopath? Do I train to do something with essential oils? But it was the flower essences that just kept popping up all the time. And then I saw, I don't know how I came across the course. It came across me somehow. And I didn't even have the money to do the course because I wasn't earning. It was something I was going to have to really think seriously about. And then my husband said, when I mentioned it to him, he came back and said, if you want to do the course, here's the money. Ta-da! So it was like, it was the right time. Everything fell into place. And I do think, 50 for me, halfway through my life, I look ahead and think I've got another 50 years. That is longer than, if you take away the school years, that's longer to spend doing something absolutely amazing with my life and helping other people.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. I didn't know that about you, about your aromatherapy and herbalist wannabe self. I didn't know that, or at least it hadn't stayed in my mind. So it's very interesting that essences above those amazing modalities, because both of those are amazing things to do, were actually what caught your heart. So when you actually arrived in the diploma, from the filter of now, what do you see was it that needed shifting in you from an emotional point of view?
So I was juggling a lot of things. I mean, it was a crazy time for me to join the diploma. After I'd signed up, I had then an outcome where my eldest daughter was very unwell, and it was like, should I go ahead with this? Before the course actually started. And looking back on it, this epitomizes how I approached everything with my head. I used my head for my career, for planning, researching, in my work, writing, academic articles. It was all head stuff. And I was being taught that I had to go with my heart. And as soon as I started the course, I realized it was all divine timing. So then I was being taught to trust something outside of myself and outside of my control. So it was a complete shift from head to heart to intuition, which was the way I'd lived my life as a child. So I was refinding who I was as a child. And I'd only been operating with one part of me. And now it was time to step into the other side. And I don't really think of it as head and heart. I think of it as outside the cave and inside the cave, to get that wholeness. So starting the diploma and everything that happened, and I know people do the diploma in a year, but I really needed to take the full journey and bleed it to its last minute at the end of the 2 years, because it was so life-changing and life-fulfilling. I wanted to squeeze every drop out of it. And again, it was trusting in divine timing. The flower energies and the essences were going to decide the time, not me. And that's how
Big
it
surrender, isn't
unfolded.
it? Yeah, it is. And so many people, even after all these years, I was just looking at it this morning, actually. It's now been running for it's in its 10th year, the diploma. After all these years, people still regularly say, I can't believe that I've just started month 7, for example, and it's absolutely what I need. It feels as if it was written for me. So there is something that I don't really have an awful lot to do with that flows through the diploma. So it's very interesting to hear you say that, Emma.
Yeah,
So
just to corroborate that, every single month there was something in my daily life that required not only the essence but the support, the journeying of that month. So, for instance, in the first month, my father-in-law passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, and we were taking Star of Bethlehem. So not only could I use that for myself, which we use at times of grief and bereavement, but I could use it for my family too. So something had caused me to need the support at that time, and it continued to be the way with everything else in my life.
it's very interesting, isn't it, how nature calls us, and how we kind of, I guess we all know this on some level, we've forgotten how much we are part of nature just by being here on this earth. We're being held by our beautiful planet and all her energies. So why wouldn't she take care of us in those ways? So coming into your heart, that's a big theme for all of us, and it's always ongoing. Finding a new way of life was calling you in, finding even a new way of earning money and helping others, very dear to your heart. So as you went through the diploma, can you share with us what were the biggest shifts, or even if you just choose one of them, what was one of the biggest shifts that you experienced?
Well, the first one, and I can do this by the time it took me to complete the section, I felt I got stuck, and there was a reason for that, was inner child work. And this was the interesting thing about the structure of the diploma, because there was an overarching structure, but within that there were interweavings of nuances that you could dive into as much as you wanted to. The empowerment of being able to do that, and as a practitioner, I wouldn't advise my clients to skate over the surface of things. It's necessary to face shadows and do that work too. But for me, inner child, because I began to realise that the reason I lived in my head most of the time and had excelled at things like academic studies was I was trying to escape the fact that I really didn't feel safe on earth, and I probably hadn't from the womb. And it's only from exploring those themes in a safely held space, which isn't necessarily being told to you by another person, but which you're uncovering by yourself, which is even more empowering, that I realised I had not felt safe for all of my life. And here I was. If I lived to 100, here I was halfway through my life. And the next thing that really pulled that home was much later on, towards the end of the diploma, where I met Pink Lotus from the FES range. And I actually had an experience of a visualization where, if you imagine what an astronaut looks like when they're doing a spacewalk and they're on the umbilical cord linked back to the spaceship, I actually had an experience rather like the lotus flower with a long stem anchoring back into the mud. I had an experience whilst taking that essence of Mother Earth pulling me back on a long umbilical cord back into Earth, because I'd basically been floating up in the ethers.
Yeah, you
And
left.
as a child, I was constantly told off for daydreaming. It was in every school report. And I even remember one of my first jobs in my 20s, the manager warned one of my colleagues to keep an eye on me because she didn't think I was quite here. was away with the fairies. Well, she's right, I was away with the fairies, but I could do my job as well. But that was obviously all through my life, and probably why I'd even did the academic work, because studying history and researching in archives, I could go off into my own little world, imagining all sorts of things. So
it's powerful, isn't it? Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. It's very powerful to hear that it was actually using essences that helped you land back on Earth as you. I think we need to say that essences aren't going to change who we are at an essence. It just helps us to feel safe as we are on Earth. So we don't change as a core being. We just, the feelings around it change, and that's what you're sharing. So Emma, what are you able to do now that you couldn't do before? So if we kind of bring it down to a kind of practical level, as practical as we can be with essences, what can you do now that you couldn't do before?
Well, essences are my daily toolkit. I have them I've taken them. So just because I've worked in a career where I've publicly spoken to thousands of people for many years, this is quite terrifying. So today I took 4 essences. So even just before now, and I have to thank Anne Callahan of Indigo Essences for making the most amazing range. So, through my daily life, essences are my toolkit, and I'm able to get through my days from morning to night taking essences. I'm able to support my family. And one of the things about being a very sensitive person, which is another thing I've always known, but I'd understood more why I'm a sensitive person. You have to have a level of sensitivity to be able to do this work. So therefore, my antennae are possibly a bit more increased than otherwise. But that means that being embodied in a physical body and being in the environments we have to navigate can be a bit tricky, but not when you've got your essences about your person or you've taken them. So it's changed my life in that sense. And also having the knowledge that I've got access to that makes navigating the world a much more different place. If I face any situation which is quite chaotic, or I immediately can drop from my head where I would be rushing around and probably going into a panic or anxiety, I can drop it back down into my heart. I can reach out to essences instantly because I've got them within my brain knowledge. I understand them in terms of I've read about them, I know what they do, but intuitively I can connect not only to essences in bottles, but around me in nature. I can connect to the energies I need to support me. So if I'm feeling scattered, I can reach out to those plants or beings such as trees that are going to ground me and root me. If I'm needing some support, I can reach out to those nourishing energies, whether that be in the bottle or actually in my environment. I can call them in either way. So it's life-changing. And I also have 5 very sensitive children, and to be able to give them natural tools to help them navigate their life and be an example to them. When you've got teenagers, they don't always want to do what you tell them, but when they watch you navigate life in this way, even if they don't take them now, hopefully in the future they will, and they do come and ask me, so they must see the effects for themselves. So it's very empowering to be able to do that for myself, and also now I can go out and help other people and show them how to do it, because it's about empowering people, for them to have the confidence. I mean, as Dr. Batch said, it's heal thyself, so we're showing people how the natural world has it all there for them.
That's lovely, Emma. Thank you. And it is an empowered journey, will look different for everybody. And that's what's lovely about it, because you can actually navigate the journey in your own way with essences. I know this is a difficult question and a big question, but if you could choose one part of our Diploma and Transformational Journey in Flower and Vibrational Essences that was your favorite, or the thing that just jumps out at you right now as being the thing that you loved a lot, what would that be?
Being able to meet and share with like-minded people. I walked into a world where I could speak my language again. A language that I probably hadn't spoken in this world because nobody understood me. And suddenly I was surrounded by not only my teachers, but my peers that spoke the same language. And it was, I'd come home. I'd found my soul group.
So it was
My
almost a part
family.
of you feeling safe, wasn't it? It was a part of you feeling
that
safe.
was part of that feeling safe again. So yeah, that was the most profound part of it, and I've never let them go. So
Flower friends, that's
my
what I always call
family,
them.
yeah, my flower family are still with me, and I've been able to build on that by, you know, getting involved in our governing body BIFA and carrying on all my connections, and they will be my lifelong friends.
Absolutely. Even when we haven't met them in the physical, certainly that's my experience as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can meet people in the physical, but it happens despite that because of the elemental connection. So Emma, thank you so much for sharing today. I'm really hoping, and in fact I know, that what you share here will inspire many, many people. Emma is now part of the support team for the diploma, and so for anybody who feels called to join us, you will meet Emma as part of your team that's guiding you. Is there any parting pearls of wisdom that you would like to leave us with today?
Well, if you want to find, this journey for me was finding fragments of myself that I'd lost. If you want to come back to being a complete version of yourself, fully embodied on this earth, you need to do a journey like this, otherwise you won't be fulfilling your soul mission. And then it's like a spiraling outwards and a spiraling inwards, because then you'll be taken on another journey and another journey. It will just be a stepping stone, but it will be a foundation that will change your life.
Thank you. Yes, it's what I see and what my own experience has been. Because if we want to co-create in this world, whatever that means to us, co-creating from our core selves makes it an awful lot easier. And taking essences over a longer period of time can definitely help us with that. Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. If you feel called to leave Emma some love, feel free to. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you for asking me.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.